From cancer diagnosis to early onset menopause overnight, this isn't just a story of survival, it's one of thriving against the odds. If you want real talk about cancer, menopause, or are just looking for inspiration for difficult challenges, this is the video for you. Hey, amazing human, my name is Beth Schmitz, and today I'm bringing you an incredible story of resilience and transformation that I think is going to inspire many of you. Kathleen will share her journey from navigating the emotional and physical impacts of cancer treatment and managing the unexpected realities of menopause. She's here to talk about the tools, the habits, the mindset that helped her rebuild her health and her life. So let's get right into it. Kathleen, thank you for being here and welcome to the channel. You have had not one, but two, like a double blow situation for you. You were diagnosed with cancer and then you went into early onset menopause as a result of the treatment from that, right? So
That's right.
can you just share a little bit about your cancer journey and maybe give us a status of where you're at now?
Oh, well, sure. When I have this story. It's a little bit long, but we can always edit it out, anything that's too complicated. When I was, I think, let me think, 48, I was in a marriage that was not supporting me, and I was very unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I started to run, and I had a running trail near my house, and
Okay.
it was 12 miles long, and I ran that every day, back and forth, back and forth. As
Mhm.
you can imagine, I dumped a lot of weight, and also what I didn't know at the time was that your fat holds on to things. Your body sequesters harmful things in your fat as well as nutrients. And
Right.
so when I went from being sedentary to being very active, it pulled all of that stuff through my system. And then my wonderful lymph nodes, which were in my armpit,
Mm-hmm.
grabbed hold of the cancer and started making it into a tumor. It just sequestered into a tumor and then it made another tumor.
Oh
And
my.
it happened really fast. I had been running for, like say 6 weeks. And then I started to notice this thickening in my armpit when in the shower.
Okay.
And then and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I kept thinking, well, this is my armpit. It isn't exactly my breast.
Right.
So I finally um, it was November, and I thought, oh, if it's not better by December 1st, I'll make an appointment. You
Mm-hmm.
know how you bargain,
Yeah.
bargain, bargain.
Yeah.
And I went and got a mammogram. And as a matter of fact, if you have any problems late in the year, getting a mammogram in December is tough because the doctors are going on vacation and other women who are budget minded are saying, "Oh my gosh, I've paid my deductible for the year. I really need to get all of my tests and all my last doctor visits out
Right.
of the way." So they're scheduling like mad to get those things. But
Okay.
I managed to get an appointment. I went in, I had the mammogram. They said, "Oh, huh, um, you know, it, I explained my symptoms and everything. And they said, well, it would have been better if we would have done a sonogram on for your particular case, but let's do the mammogram. You're due for that anyway. You know how they have you sit in a little chair after the
Mhm.
mammogram to make sure everything's okay.
Right.
They said, let's have you come in just for a couple more shots. And so then they did even more
Boob mashing.
views. And I went out and I sat in the hall and I waited. And then they said, you know what? We want you to talk to the sonogram lady. And I thought, I'm cooked. I just knew that,
Oh,
well, I've had lots of mammograms and I've never been asked back for an encore
right.
while in the doctor's office. And then to have all of a sudden the test that was completely unavailable, available, that didn't seem like a good thing, and it wasn't. But
Oh,
of course, they can't tell you anything. The technician who is doing it but you can tell by the looks on their faces and by what they don't say, oh, this is nothing, don't worry. I didn't hear any of those reassuring things or I'm not sure, have to ask the doctor It could be, it was just like, oh, okay, we'll get back to you. And that,
Whoa.
so anyway, anybody that goes through that, I'm so sorry for you. Um, the way that it wound up going, I had the test on December 15th, and I didn't get to find out the results until the Monday after Christmas.
Oh, happy holiday.
So, at times like that, that's the only time I wanted to be the president or somebody who actually gets their medical results in a timely manner. I think this is torture, and
Yeah.
they should really have some sort of a law that you have to staff the mammogram place with a radiologist that can tell you right then what you got. But anyway, the
Right.
radiologist never spoke to me. They talked to my doctor, and then my doctor called me and said, we've got the names of a couple of doctors that you might want to consider going to. That one's an oncologist, one's a surgeon, and I'm like, oh, geez. So I knew that I was, in deep trouble. Also, I had what is called a rapidly growing invasive cancer. So it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and
Okay.
that just my anxiety climbed and climbed and climbed.
Right.
And that was definitely no fun. And then I went and I saw a doctor, and he did a needle biopsy to just confirm it for himself,
Right.
which was just tons of fun. And he didn't give me any anesthesia. And
Jeez.
later on, I got a hold of his notes, and he said tolerates pain well. I just wanted to smack him.
She whiz. Oh my goodness, that should be malpractice.
Yeah, and then basically he said after the biopsy results was that what he wanted to do was a mastectomy, complete mastectomy, and that I definitely had cancer. And he said there's two kinds of cancer. There's cancer in situ, which means I put my hand up here.
That's
It's
okay.
in a discrete lump that
Okay.
has clear margins that they can take out. And he said, when you have it in a discrete lump like that, it's
Hmm.
sort of like having cattle in a barn in a pen.
Oh,
And that's good. That's easy to remove, and
okay.
that's great. But what you have is your cattle have gotten out of the pen and they've gotten into your lymph nodes. And so that's why we really feel like we don't know how extensive the surgery, how far those cattle have gotten, but we want to just round them all up and make sure that, you know, I'm like, okay, well, let me think about it. And what I thought was, I am not coming back to this doctor ever again.
Second opinions
Oh,
are very important.
because to me it didn't make any sense. Again, the the lumps were in the armpit, and he wanted to take the all of this stuff in my armpit and my breast.
Right.
And I'll stand up just a little bit. I have large breasts,
Okay.
and I've had large breasts since I was 16.
Hmm.
They're part of me. They're part of my identity. And I
They're part of your
really didn't
body.
want to lose.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be. Um, I didn't want the deformation. Now, that was my feeling.
Hmm.
I am not saying that anybody that chooses to have a mastectomy, or anyone who was required to have a mastectomy, or just went along with the doctor and had a mastectomy, made a mistake. I am not saying that.
Oh, it's
I
an
think
individual choice.
everybody has to make their own choices, do the best they can with the information they have at the time, and with the um, just everything that they have that comes to them at the time. You
Right.
have Everybody needs to think it over for themselves. So my way was to go find a second opinion.
Hmm.
And I am very fortunate because I live in California, not far from Stanford. Uh,
Oh,
and I had a friend, I had an unfortunate friend who had colon cancer, and she told me that Stanford has a thing called the tumor board. Also, I was having trouble getting an appointment with a better oncologist or any other oncologist. Cancer was just ripping through the Bay Area at the time.
my goodness.
So, my friend who had cancer, gave me the number of the tumor board, and I was able to make an appointment there. And what the tumor board is, I didn't know. I thought it was, they would just look at, I thought they would look at my records and then they would say yes or no if they wanted to take me on.
Mhm.
Because Stanford is a teaching hospital
Right.
and that sometimes they're looking for interesting cases. And I wanted to be an interesting case, but I didn't know if I was.
Okay.
So I sent all my stuff in, and I went in, with my records and everything because they said, oh, there will also be a physical exam. So I've had lots of physical exams, no big deal. What I didn't realize is that at the tumor board, the oncologist, all of the oncologist fellows, the radiologist, all the radiologist fellows, and the surgeon, and all the surgical fellows want to do an exam. So
People.
it was just a little bit like being Betty the
Hey,
the
here
stripper.
I
I came up with an alternate identity so that I could put up with having male and female, just lots and lots of doctors come in, feel me up. Not only the problem area, but they have to feel the good one for comparison.
am. Okay.
So anyway, I had lots of feels, lots of friends that day.
Yes, indeed.
They did say, yes, you are a good candidate.
Okay.
So I was brought into the arms of Stanford, and I, what my oncologist, I'd been doing some research,
Hmm.
and what I wanted was I wanted to have chemotherapy first to shrink the tumor as small as it could be to make it easier for the surgeon to remove it. Also to stop the cancer from growing because I didn't know how long it was going to take him to schedule the surgery.
Okay.
And I sat down with them. I told them that's what I wanted, and they agreed with my plan, and they created that sort of a treatment plan. So what I did was I had 12 weeks of chemo, well, 12 weeks. I didn't have 12 chemotherapy treatments. 1 week I had this treatment, 1 week off, 1 week on, 1 week off. They called it dose dense treatments.
So it was a
And
total
what it
of
was
weeks then.
for
You
12 weeks, I mean, 12 total,
over this 24 weeks.
24 weeks, yeah, 3 months. And what that's like is it's like having the flu
Okay.
every other week for 24 weeks. It's exhausting.
I can't
Um,
even imagine. Now, I was listening to a podcast of a female breast surgeon who, until she had breast cancer herself, she said in the 10 years she was practicing, she never talked to her patients about the treatment throwing you into the effects of going into early, excuse me, early onset menopause as a result of the treatment. Now, was any information given to you regarding that? I mean, you're on this 24-week process of 12 treatments where you're having flu-like symptoms. Were you aware that this was a possibility?
yes, they said, and also, as I said, I was 48.
Okay.
And so I was probably perimenopausal when I went into it.
Mhm.
So, and she said that might be a side effect of the treatment. She
Okay.
said, I might not have any more periods, or I might. And she didn't ask me if I wanted to freeze my eggs, which, or maybe she did, and I didn't say yes because my children were in their teens at the time, and I
Okay.
really didn't want to have more children. But that's definitely something I would encourage someone to do if they're being told that they're going to have chemotherapy,
Hmm.
uh, and they want to have more children. Have your eggs frozen
Okay.
as quickly as possible, and then then go ahead and have the chemo. I never would say, "Oh, don't worry, you'll be fine." Yeah, because I'm going to tell you the other thing that I did in addition to the chemo,
Okay.
which I think made all the difference, but I'm not sure whether it was the chemo that cured me or this other thing I'm going to tell you about cured me.
Okay. Before we dive deeper into Kathleen's journey, I just want to pause and ask all of you watching if you have any questions for her or would love to hear more or do a deeper dive into some part of her story. Drop your questions in the comments below. We might even do a follow-up interview. Your feedback and curiosity are what helps shape these conversations. So don't be shy, ask away, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Now let's continue with Kathleen's inspiring journey.
So, I'm as you can probably tell by now, a belt and suspenders kind of a gal. I want to do everything I can because they said even with this whole treatment plan, I was only 85% likely to heal.
Really?
Yeah, with the 12 weeks, 12 treatments of chemo, surgery, and then I can't, it was like 30 days of radiation on the back end. And I
Okay.
said, that's 85% chance. And I'm like, I want to be 100% kind of a girl. I want it all. They said, well, the rest is up to you. And I'm
Hmm.
like, frick, the rest is up to me.
Me?
I'm not a cancer specialist.
Right?
So what I did find was I found Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life.
Mm-hmm.
And in her book, she has a four-step method. Basically, you have to learn how to love yourself. You
Okay.
have to learn how to forgive yourself and forgive other people. And that took a while. I mean, uh, over
Process.
those 24 weeks, I really worked on loving myself, forgiving myself, visualizing what it was that I wanted instead. I knew I was an unhappy person. I knew my marriage wasn't ideal. I was trying to find a better job. I was trying to find a lot of things. I was very up in the air. And
Okay.
then I also visualized every time I had a treatment, I visualized that the drugs were working and they were shrinking the cancer. Drugs are working, they're shrinking the cancer. I just
Just in.
every time,
Okay.
yes, it's a whole package. You have to really, if you're going to do the metaphysical thing, there's no half measures. You can't say, well, maybe it would be nice if the uh, tumor shrank. That'd be a nice, possibly if it could. No, you just really have to see it
You got
in
an
your
in.
mind.
Okay.
You see, I had all sorts of visualizations. I visualized it as an ice cube that was melting in the sun.
That's
Another time I went in and I visualized it as firemen with a fire hose hosing down the tumor and breaking it up.
okay.
I imagined myself one time with a chainsaw chopping it up. I mean,
Wow.
every visualization I could think
Mhm.
about making that tumor smaller, I did. And like I said, I also worked really hard on getting over being upset with my husband over and actually I'd had two husbands by then and I was angry with both of them and I had to just
Break.
get rid of that and let go of it and decide, is it more important for me to be right or is it more important for me to heal?
Wow, that's convicting.
You have to make a choice. You can be, I'm righteous because I was mistreated and that they didn't understand me and they made me do too much work and they didn't let me rest and blah blah blah. You can you can be absolutely angry. I was mistreated. I wasn't given whatever I thought I was deserved or whatever. Or you can say, I didn't speak up for myself well enough. I fought instead of discussed. I
Okay.
was angry instead of trying to find a solution. I expected them to solve my problem for me because they were the man and I was just my job was to just bring them the problem and their job was to solve it. That doesn't work. We have to solve our own problems. We have to find our own solutions. Then we have to advocate for our solution. And when, it's just like if you want to go to Paris,
Mm-hmm.
then you say, okay, well, how can I get to Paris? Which airlines fly to Paris? It doesn't do any good to book on Southwest. Southwest doesn't fly to Paris.
Right.
You have to, even though you can afford Southwest and can't necessarily afford United,
Right.
you know, you need to actually figure out where you want to go, the steps that you need to take, and then you need to find a way to take the steps,
So it's a
whether they're
reverse
difficult or
engineering process.
yeah, difficult or expensive. And you need to figure that out for yourself. And that was the piece I was missing personally. I was waiting for everybody else to look after me, to make me happy, and so on. And that wasn't their job. My job was to make me happy. My job was to get my goals. My job was to decide what I wanted and go after it. And I can't tell you, like I said, I was 48. I was definitely old enough to know that, but I didn't know it.
Well, you do now, and I think that's going to be super helpful to everybody listening and watching that, the four steps. you need to forgive yourself. You need to have a plan. Nobody's coming to save you, which is the one that speaks really loud to me. So kudos to you.
And
So
visualize what you want and make
like
it happen. Take action towards what you want.
one step, do the research. Next step is take the action. So you're always going forward instead of in a circle. That makes perfect.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Always go forward. And if you get knocked back, if you have a setback or whatever, you have a setback. You have to get back up. You have to revise the plan, fix whatever didn't work, and try again. I Women often don't try again. They just like, well, I tried.
Yeah.
No, succeed. Try until you succeed.
Plan, do review, plan, do review. There you go.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
How
If
cool.
we, if it was your child who was struggling to walk or talk or anything, you would find the resource to help them because you know that walking and talking are essential to success.
Right.
So do the same thing for yourself. Figure out figure out what you want, what resources you need, and then how can I get those resources? And just keep trying and keep asking and keep going for it. So obviously, I didn't die. I made it.
Hey.
Yeah, that's the so there's the proof in the pudding. I didn't die. I did do all of the chemo. I felt like hell, but at the end of the chemo, the lump was gone. I'm like, great. I don't need surgery. I don't need radiation. I should have stuck with that, but I didn't. The doctor said, "Well, we're
Mm.
not sure. There could still be a little bit in there, so let's check." So I said, "Okay, let's do the surgery." So they did the surgery. I went in at 7 a.m. I didn't leave the recovery room until like 5:30. I was told it was a 2-hour thing. And when I woke up, I was like, oh,
What?
there was a clock on the wall. And it was like 4:30. And you have to lay around there for like
Right.
an hour for the anesthesia to drip away from you so that they're sure you're not going to just go to bed and go to sleep. So anyway, I was there and I said, what happened? And she said, well, I wanted to be sure. And what she did was she opened my armpit up. She took out a lymph node. She sent it to the lab. No cancer. She went in. She felt around. She found another lymph node. She cut it out. She sent it to the lab. No cancer. She went in. She did that like, I don't know how many times, at least between 3 and 5. She sent sample after sample after sample to the lab, and they couldn't find any cancer. And I said, I said, great, I'm cured, I'm well, I'm woo, woo. Not.
Mm.
What? Maybe not. So the well, radiation that we recommend radiation because something we could have missed something. She was just terrified that she missed something that because she didn't find it, she thought she missed it. So she convinced me to go ahead and do radiation. I think the radiation was overkill, but I made it through that as well, and it was not fun. As you can tell, I have very fair skin,
Right.
and
Burned.
radiation is basically a sunburn, and it happens very quickly for people with my complexion.
Mm.
But anyway, I made it through it. But what I really want people to understand is that your thoughts can make you sick, and your thoughts can make you well.
I love
And you
that.
really need to hold on to that, that your thoughts are more powerful than any drug you're going to take
Mm.
or any treatment you're going to have. And,
I
you
think
know,
there's studies that actually prove that people with a better mind or better, a more positive mindset tend to live longer, be healthier, and I don't have the studies in front of me, but it makes sense. I mean, it totally makes sense to me that that would be the case. You know,
yeah,
stress adds to everything physiologically. So if you're, yeah.
and I've talked to other people. I talked to one other breast cancer survivor who had a very similar story to mine, that
Mhm.
she had held on. She knew everything that anyone had ever done against her, and she could remember it all. She remembered it all. And then she went in. to
Mm.
the doctor's office and found out she had cancer, and all of a sudden she decided that this backpack of wrongs and anger that she'd been carrying around with her wasn't really doing her any good. And
Yeah,
she decided to take the backpack of anger off, and that helped her to get well as well.
I
So
love
I'm not the only person that's ever had this happen.
I
And
like the backpack analogy too. That makes a lot of sense because you're carrying all
yeah,
that extra. It's just weighing you down. It's just weighing you down.
yeah, it does absolutely no good. And notice I didn't say that after I forgave my husband and my ex-husband of all the things that annoyed me, that they came and gave me this great apology and that was part of the process. It was not. Not part of the process. It
Hmm.
was all me, it was all in my head, and I let go of being angry and resentful towards them.
Yeah, they
And
say forgiveness is more for you than the other person.
it totally is for you. It's totally for you. And so I really encourage people to seek out peace rather than um, trying to get something punitive done. I'm possibly if somebody would have run over my child and killed my child, I'd want to go and find them and but or you know,
Well, that hasn't happened, so we're not even going to deal with that.
right. So, but I don't it doesn't do good to hold on to your grudges. It just doesn't. It's not going to help you get better. And as it worked out, when I no longer had this need to try and extract something from my ex-husband, um, the marriage finally fell the rest of the way apart,
Mhm.
and we got a divorce. And I was on my own, but I was fine. And I was actually better off because I wasn't living with somebody I didn't like.
Right.
So, um,
That's all.
things change when you change. So go ahead and change, be brave. Living with somebody that makes you angry on a daily basis isn't really living.
No, no.
Don't worry about trying to keep up appearances or anything else. Worry about yourself. Worry about your mental health. You're a strong person and you can make decisions that make a difference for you.
That's
And so this whole story took place almost exactly 20 years ago. But yeah, exactly 20 years ago now. Because we're coming up on December, and it was 2004 when I was diagnosed.
yeah, that is almost 20. Yeah, it'll be 20 years, 2 decades.
Two
Cool.
decades. And like I said, that, oh, by the way, that 100% healing, if I was able to achieve it, they said 5 years. So I've had 20 years. I've seen my children graduate from high school, graduate from college. My daughter's gotten married. I have two grandchildren. All of those things happened because I decided not to die. I decided to find a way. I decided to get better. And so I think that is the key is that and I'm sorry there's a lot of lovely people I'm sure that have had cancer that have died anyway. They weren't able to get all of these things together. If you have someone in your life that passed away because of cancer, everything might not have felt like something that they could manage. And certain cancers, you don't discover them until too late. Like my friend who had the colon cancer, who helped me to get into Stanford to get the life-saving treatment, she passed away herself. Her name was Cindy Rutherford, and I'm forever grateful to her for her her gift of that connection.
That's right.
So the people in your life matter. Reach out to them, help them when you can, forgive them when you can't help them and they can't help you, and
Right.
really try and just keep looking for a way to succeed rather than a way to get even. That
That's
that's kind of my story.
so we have about 10 minutes left here before this runs out. Can you just shift real quick? The menopause symptoms that you experienced, was it sudden? Did you just know what it was? Was it, I mean, you were feeling like you had the flu all the time anyway. Was it something that just like boom hit you, or was it just a gradual thing that really didn't make a big difference after
It
you?
made a huge difference. Thank you for bringing it back to the topic. Yeah, it happened very quickly. I had probably after the third chemo treatment that I had, um, I I knew that I had been changed permanently. The period stopped immediately,
Okay.
and then all of the other things that happen when you have menopause happened. I had night sweats. I had a foggy memory. I felt like I was losing my mind, and I didn't think that it was all the chemo related. I started doing research on menopause too, and I noticed that a lot of the things that were happening to me were menopause related. And at the time, the treatment for cancer was they did not give you hormone replacement therapy at all. No, no, no. That was completely verboten. I
Right.
didn't, and I didn't even have there's two kinds of breast cancer. There's a um, estrogen positive cancer,
Right.
and then there's an HRT positive cancer. That's what I had. I
Okay.
didn't have the estrogen type, but my doctor still was definitely, as I was going through the worst of the symptoms, would
Mhm.
not let me have any additional hormones. And then I found out also from another doctor that what I would, when I did get some hormones, like I got a cream and it was Premarin. And do you know what that means?
No, of
Premarin means it was from mares. They were using
course you're not.
mare
Yeah.
estrogen
Yeah.
instead of bioidentical human estrogen. So it's really important if you get hormone treatment that you get bioidentical hormone treatment. Uh,
Instead of horse mare urine. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So what I wound up taking was plant-based estrogen, which I think is made out of soybeans, but
Okay.
I'm not sure. But I think
Would make-
that's
Yeah. And
it was a
that
plant-based thing.
did it help with the symptoms then? I
It
mean,
did.
okay.
It did. Um, and again, I don't know if it was time or my body coming back into to level after I got rid of the chemo stuff, but
After you
yeah,
detox
for like
all
a
of
year afterwards, I had menopause symptoms and my periods didn't ever return. So
that.
it was, but it was like hitting a brick wall on
Okay.
top of everything
Right.
else, going through
Right.
instant menopause. I don't recommend it.
Well, okay, we'll heed that advice. So if you could give in the last few seconds here, if you could give one piece of advice to women who might be struggling with their health or yeah, mental, physical, and emotional, what would it be? I mean, you've already given us so many nuggets, but if you had like one piece, what would you do? What would you say to them?
Um, Research is your friend. Look at, look, don't don't ever let anybody tell you you're imagining it. You're not imagining it. You are going through something. Your body is changing. It is having effects on your weight, your thinking, your ability to rest at night, all the important things that you used to be able to do. And the other thing I would suggest is have an exercise program.
Okay.
Really, those 10,000 steps, if that's all you can manage, is great. Running is great, but it's super important to stay active as you go into menopause because it will reduce your stress and
Mhm.
it will keep your weight manageable. And the last thing you need to do is have a bunch of self-hate. Oh, I can't fit into my jeans anymore. I look like a cow. You gotta,
Right.
don't do that. Don't go down that road of being mean to you. You have to be your own advocate and you have to do everything you can to feel better. And, get that diet and exercise up and drink lots of water. Those things will make a big difference.
All right. Well, Kathleen, thank you again for sharing your powerful story of fighting cancer and the menopause journey. It's such a powerful reminder of how resilient we can be, even in the face of toughest challenges. So I appreciate you making the time to be with us today. And yeah, so then
And if
I'll
you
do an
happen to, there,
yeah.
point that way. If you're curious about this, removemyobstacle.com. This is for people who are struggling with imposter syndrome, or procrastination or self-sabotage. I have resources there. It's a free resource. Go get it. And that's
Absolutely.
another thing that if you're not struggling with it, perhaps you have a child who's struggling with it, there are ways that you can step through that challenge as well. Don't get stuck. Research and try new things.
Yeah, definitely. So hit Kathleen up. You can see that on the screen over there. She has resources for you, and make sure you make that available to yourself. If Kathleen's story resonated with you, and if you took away any insights or inspiration, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to share this video with anyone who might find value from her message. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that boop like and boop subscribe button and turn on the bell notification so that you don't miss any more inspiring stories and practical tips for health, wellness, and thriving at every stage of your life. Thank you so much for watching, and a huge thank you to Kathleen for sharing her story with us. Until the next time, be well.